Yeah.
Because I mean, this is why I came, because I wanted to really directly speak with people and others, because even that, for me, is the me. Okay, so on a thinking level here, you know, saying I'm going to pause, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that.
Okay? You say that's the me?
It's conditioned.
No, not at all.
You know,
not at all.
It's conditioned
because the me is reactive. The me is, you know, if I feel threatened, I attack, run, or what are they? You know, right. The me is reaction, is reactive.
Well, isn't reactive, or is the fear or the threatened that if I don't pause, there'll be a mess?
Well, there is intelligence in recognizing that if I eat that pint of ice cream before going to sleep, I'm going to toss and turn at night. Okay, there's intelligence in that. You see,
consciousness is involved, definitely.
Intelligence is part of consciousness. You see, that's you know, consciousness is beauty, intelligence, wisdom. So once you understand something, and it makes sense to you, you see, it makes sense that it comes from a different place than serving me, you see. Now, on the other hand, yes, there can be also some me structures that also feed on the intelligence. Like, for example, if I salesperson, if I talk to the client and use these key words, they will buy my goods and they will believe that my goods are really deliver, while they don't, you see. So I'll say, oh yeah, oh, this is highly efficient, and you know, it's pet friendly and whatever. Then I'll use yeah. And the client goes, oh, okay, well, I'll buy that, you see. So that's, yes, that's serving the me. It's serving me because it is coming from a place, from the source, from a sense of lack and a fear that if I don't get that sale, what's going to happen to me? You see, that's not happy already. Right there, it's not happy. So we choose, when I say, okay, don't choose that. Don't choose the fear. That is, I'm addressing consciousness. I'm addressing intelligence. And intelligence, the intelligence which is consciousness, recognize that, says, yeah, what I'm hearing makes sense. The mind hasn't fully programmed it yet. It hasn't. But at some level, what I'm hearing makes sense. Don't choose to act out of a place of contraction. Because if you're acting out of a place of contraction, your behavior is going to have a trace, is going to have that virus, that infection, is going to be carrying along that contraction, that fear, that it's going to carry it along. And as it's carrying along, there's going to be further and further consequences. See, at some level, there is a recognition that makes sense. And that level that realizes that makes sense, that is not the me. That is intelligence.
Maybe it's, for me, and I'm using me as a person.
It's okay.
As consciousness.
Yeah, of course.
Because I think really maybe I should be using consciousness.
Well, yes, consciousness.
But maybe I should be using oneness. And that is, oneness recognizes something, but it's the idea of, I think, what I hear when people talk about attention, you know, and so attention always it begins to somehow, it's not, it's grace. Some people like to say grace, but it's that, you know, the I beyond the me starts to recognize itself, and attention begins to stay there longer and to be there more so than the body-mind mechanism or the form, you know. And so the great love is the attention or the not to, the oneness with that. And that's not by my working it out by the me, or like you say, it's not self-serving, the me-serving. All of a sudden, this oneness begins to one could say, operate more so, and recognize, I think, that I began as consciousness, began to recognize the other in a sense of being the attention going to me again. Even though I can allow that to be there, because if it's all one, then it all belongs in the way I see it. However, I see that the peace and the true union, in a sense, is being consciousness. And so there's using it in words, I don't know any other way, but it longs for itself. And so I think this body and this mind begins to even understand that to some degree, you know, and it starts to be moved in that direction. Whereas I think before, my body and my mind understands its senses, you know, and its perceptions and the conditioning and so forth and so on, and thinks it's going to move in that direction. And it's really, it just goes around in circles. So the shift for me is letting go. It begins to drop, begins to let go.
Yeah. As you contemplate the reality of your experience, the truth, the body-mind comes on board, follows it. There is a process. There might be some resistances at the body-mind level, but if your focus and your intention, more than your attention, if your intention is divine, if your intention is godly, if your intention is not at the mind level, not at the personal level, there is a recognition that there is a greater love than at the worldly level, and so you're open to that, and you're contemplating that. You're contemplating the reality of consciousness, reality of your experience, what is true, what is real. The body-mind will line up, will follow. The world body-mind will be graced via your contemplation. You will find that the body becomes more transparent, the mind more tranquil, less complicated, and the world more beautiful and peaceful. That's part of the exploration, part of the contemplation. There is a maturing process, and the dream, meaning the world, body, mind, the world, perceptions, the body, sensations, the mind, thoughts, their substance is consciousness. And as consciousness is revealing itself, is blooming. The perfume of consciousness is this profusion of it. The world, body, mind also shifts. That's the magic of it. It's really beautiful. You will notice that at some point in your contemplation, you will notice that your life is changing. You might not notice it right away. You might notice it after the fact. Oh, gee, it seems that the last year has been, sort of more peaceful, less argument, more easy. There are also serendipitous events that will happen in your life. You're thinking about, oh gee, it'd be nice if I lived more in a lesser busy area or something. You might find, you get an inheritance and you'll find yourself living in, there'll be all sorts of serendipitous events that will confirm to you the seamless and absolute quality of consciousness. It's really beautiful. It's very magical. And of course the peace that reveals itself is a transparency, sort of an effortlessness. All that comes along. But you have to be interested in what is real. It's a contemplation, it's an exploration, it's an inquiry. What is it that's real in this moment? And what shape does it take? So there are two levels to that. There is the appearance level, it's taking this shape, and there is a shapeless level, which is where the real nectar of consciousness is. It's at the formless level. That's where the reality is. The reality is at the formless level. And then it appears as this. See? It appears as this. But knowing yourself as that reality, not as the reality that appears, but the reality that does not. And that does, but not necessarily so, but it does, or does not. But knowing yourself as that reality, that knowledge doesn't come and go. Now there is a process of there is a deepening revelation, a maturing, there is a ripening process. And at some point the fruit falls off the tree. At some point the pod opens up and blooms. And but even as you're getting closer and closer to the fruit falling off the tree, the perfume of the fruit can be sensed and smelled and celebrated, which is the inquiry, the path of inquiry, the path of contemplation. Is a celebration. Is a a love journey. It's a journey of love, love of truth, love of beauty, love of peace, love of friendship, love of sweetness, love of sincerity, love of honesty, love of the divine qualities, and the profound interest in the revelation. So, sort of gently shape and move everything towards that interest. See, like if your interest is to travel to Paris this year, throughout the year you're trying to figure it out. You're just trying to work your schedule and talk to your family, and you're working it, until everything is sort of lined up and you're able to do. There is the space for that trip. If everything is on board for that trip, you save the money for it. You study where you want to go, what you want to do. So it's in the same way in your life, you line everything up towards, in the direction of your love of truth. Otherwise, your interest is just intellectual. Oh yeah, I would love to go to Paris sometime, but I'm working, 60 hours a week for the next 75 months. It's an intellectual interest. It's not a real passion. And you will find yourself in seeking and interested in the company of friends that share that interest, share that passion, that remind you somehow just by their very love of what you truly love. And you remind them through your love of what they truly love. It's a win-win. That's what's referred to in the Buddhist as a Sangha. Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha being the three pillars of the path to God. The Buddha meaning the teacher. The Sangha is the community, and the Dharma is the teaching. It's all consciousness. The teacher is not, it's your love that brings the teaching and the teacher. At some point your love reaches a certain mass. there any questions?